Hi, welcome to the third short lecture on Chapter 5. I've added one more term here, lexicon. This isn't in our textbook, but I think it's useful when we're talking about diction, when we're talking about imagery, and it'll be helpful for us when we take a look at The Fish by Elizabeth Bishop in just a moment. From the Oxford English Dictionary, we get a couple of definitions. One is that a lexicon is basically a word book or a dictionary. And two, and I think this one's more relevant for our purposes, it's vocabulary proper to some department of knowledge or sphere of activity. And I think that will be useful to us when we read The Fish. I'd like us to look at this poem by Bishop to see how the images and the diction work together to create the tone. The tone in this poem is one of respect. That's not what you might expect at the beginning of the poem, but after we take a look at some of the imagery and the diction that Bishop uses, I think you'll see that there definitely is a respectful tone in the poem. As you read through this poem in the chapter, pay attention to the very precise descriptions that are conveyed through the imagery. Bishop is well known and well respected for crafting very precise imagery. Notice also the diction, and then toward the poem's conclusion, notice how it shifts into the lexicon of boating. So here's the poem. It's in the textbook and it's also here on the Academy of American Poets website. And the entire poem describes the speaker's experience of catching a tremendous fish and then providing very specific descriptions about this fish and coming to a particular realization. Right away, we have the description of the speaker holding the fish beside the boat, half out of the water. And the fish is described as having a grunting weight. So we're feeling the weight of the fish. That's the first image. It's not even that it's visual or auditory or anything else. You can feel the weight of the fish. And then the poem describes the fish as battered and venerable and homely. In these two lines, Bishop is mixing two different types of diction. She has more colloquial or general, actually, diction here, battered and homely. And then venerable is more formal. If we take a look at the Oxford English Dictionary, we find that the word means worthy of being venerated, revered, or highly respected and esteemed. This is the way the speaker is describing a fish, highly respected and esteemed. So already this description, the diction and the image, are conveying that tone of respect. Then the speaker moves on into more visual description. Notice how artistic these descriptions are. His brown skin hung in strips like ancient wallpaper. Its pattern of darker brown was like wallpaper. Shapes like full-blown roses, stained and lost through age. So she's using a series of similes. We haven't learned about similes yet, but we'll be getting to them in the next chapter. She's simply comparing the fish to other things we might be familiar with to give us a sense of what the fish looks like. But these are very unusual images for describing a large fish. Skin like strips of ancient wallpaper. Shapes on the skin like full-blown roses, stained and lost through age. Then she moves on with the description, very specific, speckled with barnacles, fine rosettes of lime, infested with tiny white sea lice. Notice how close the attention is that the speaker is paying to this fish. Finding the 2 or 3 rags of green weed hanging down. And as the poem goes on, we get more and more of this specific imagery, what the speaker is seeing as the speaker looks at this large fish. And then finally, a realization. As the speaker is looking at the sullen face, at the fish's jaw, the speaker finds 5 old pieces of fish line stuck in the fish's jaw, 5 big hooks grown firmly in his mouth. And we come to realize how often this fish has been caught and managed to survive. The speaker describes these hooks and lines like medals with their ribbons. There's been a victory on the part of the fish. A 5-haired beard of wisdom. So these images, like medals with their ribbons, a 5-haired beard of wisdom, are contributing again to that tone of respect. I stared and stared. This is really a poem about observation, and when we move past the surface of things, what we can learn. And now the attention shifts to the boat, and the lexicon becomes one of boating. Bilge, bailer, thwarts, oarlocks, gunwales, all from the lexicon of boating. And the speaker begins to notice the worn condition of the boat, worn from fishing. It parallels the worn condition of the fish from being caught with fishing. And because we've seen this respect on the part of the speaker grow throughout the poem, it makes more sense, the celebratory conclusion, rainbow, 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 and I let the fish go. So all of these details, all of the imagery and the diction create the tone of respect, and that's why we don't have a poem just about a fish. We have a tone about the fish, a specific fish with a specific description and a specific history. And the close attention paid by the speaker results in that respect that causes the speaker to let the fish go.